Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and healing from these relationships. Well, here's two words you may not always think you're going to hear together, but here they are. Relaxation anxiety. Let's talk a little bit about this. I recently did a live Zoom with my colleague, Dr. Kate Truitt, who studies the neuroscience of trauma. Definitely check out her stuff. We will put it in the show notes, in the video description, so you can go look at her stuff and her books and things like that too. But when we had this sort of Zoom presentation, she talked about something that kind of caught me in my tracks because it was a terminology I hadn't heard that way, but it was so applicable to survivors of narcissistic abuse. And that is something called relaxation anxiety. Like I said, we don't usually see those two words together. And I was like, ooh, these words really do go together. Relaxation anxiety refers to the anxiety that comes up for a person who experiences all the signs and symptoms of anxiety at times of quiet and relaxation. For example, when you aren't busy managing them or running around doing all the things that need to be done to keep the trains running on time or just busy with life. When the quiet comes, it can be unsettling for people in toxic or narcissistic relationships because once you're alone with your thoughts, the thing that often kicks in is rumination. And you may start playing the scripts in your head. And because once you really think about a narcissistic relationship, your two options are to either blame yourself or to see the relationship more clearly. And we know to do that opens up a whole world of pain because then it may raise issues of shame. Why do I put up with this? Or guilt. Maybe I'm not being too realistic, or anger. Oh God, I gotta do something about this. This is ridiculous. And trauma-bonded confusion. So altogether, the so-called quiet, relaxed times can become quite overwhelming. But when you look at all of the advice out there about anxiety and managing stress and strong emotions, what is often at the top of the list, mindfulness, meditation, all the stop and slow down stuff, right? It's a lovely idea, and they're all great things to do and ultimately a win. But initially, sometimes doing these sort of slow your mind down things can be experienced as aversive. Because even going to sleep at night can feel like too much for folks in narcissistic relationships, who given just one quiet period of mind, will ruminate repeatedly. But the quietness of mind is important. And yet it can feel impossible for survivors to get to. Interestingly, when Dr. Truitt was talking about this whole idea of relaxation anxiety, I was sort of stopped in my tracks because as a lifelong survivor of narcissistic relationships, even to this day, I took a step back at my peripatetic go life, working all the time, moving all the time, never letting myself have a moment of mental quietness, and then collapsing into bed at the end of the night. So there is no quiet time before I fall asleep. It all seems so virtuous. Dr. Ramani, always working hard, keeping busy. But the problem is, when there is a moment of quiet, or even a roll over and wake up in the middle of the night, and then the thoughts come in, and they are like tornado clouds that make me more anxious. This results in what she speaks about, that the act of relaxation and quiet can actually make a person anxious. It's almost like, what am I supposed to do at this time? Because damn, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. And that's an experience of many survivors. It's a real issue because survivors of narcissistic relationships are already exhausted because of the relationship itself, running around and constantly managing it and trying to be perfect or wondering what you did wrong or reading their mind. Psychologically, a narcissistic relationship is a full-time job. But never having that quietude of mind ultimately is exhausting you. However, the fix isn't as simple as just meditate. This is why understanding what this relationship is doing to you becomes so important. Understanding the dynamics of the narcissistic relationship, how these relationships work, how narcissism shows up, how it affects you, While it's painful to have to reflect on that stuff, it can help lift some of the confusion. And then you can pace yourself. It may be that initially you find that you can do sort of shorter stretches of mind quieting, guided meditations that give you healthy imagery to focus on, that can be a start. Or using some downtime to read things that are uplifting and not just distracting. Distraction makes sense as a way to let you keep on keeping on. But all of those feelings you don't want to be with don't just distract away. They add up and they take a toll on you, mentally and physically. It can also help to know that relaxation anxiety is actually a thing. So many survivors think, oh great, I can't even do meditation right, and that's just sitting still. And I would argue, don't just advance to meditation. Start with good old mindfulness. It's a lighter lift. Mindfulness can be done in small, tiny slices of time. Describing your surroundings to yourself, breathing, and taking in what is around you. Touching in with your feelings throughout the day. Listening to your body and being curious about what it's telling you. Mindfulness can just be an attunement to self, something we are often not able to do in narcissistic relationships, but can be a step one to being able to tolerate a quiet mind at times. It is ironic because I am laying this video idea out and putting this video out there. Originally, I thought about this video on a day that I was ostensibly supposed to be on a day off, right? So that's when I first thought of this. I was in a lovely hotel in a beautiful place on a warm, gorgeous day. And when I woke up that morning, I was flooded with all kinds of uncomfortable thoughts. And I picked up my computer and I started writing instead of being with the thought because that was more uncomfortable to me. So it may be time for a physician to heal thyself, because I also need to go sit in that sun and stare out at the water for a moment and not just read or play a game or write, but just be. And the prospect of just being does actually leave me feeling a little anxious, kind of afraid of my own thoughts. So the very act of relaxation gets turned into something else. And that's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Right? Please drop in the comments if this is something that you have struggled with in or even out of a narcissistic relationship. This anxiety related to relaxation, this sort of fear of your own thoughts, of the risk of getting pulled into the rumination, or this constant pull into the dissociation of productivity. I do intend, sometime soon, to put the laptop down, lock it up, and leave the comfort of my beloved little laptop for the far scarier place of a lounge chair and some quiet. Wish me luck. Thanks again.